So Kayvon, do you want to tell them, or should I, that anybody who's streaming this right now on Periscope will be taken down because we've got an official TechCrunch stream?
I was wondering how long it would take before you made that joke. I guess it was the
Not
first 5
very
seconds.
long at all.
Yeah.
So should we talk about boxing?
If you'd like to.
I would like to.
Whatever you want to talk about. Sir.
Let's talk about boxing. All right, so for anybody who doesn't understand the reference, over the weekend there was a big heavyweight fight. It was widely watched. Big night for pay-per-view dollars. And Periscope got a lot of attention, particularly for 2 reasons. One was because it was providing an amazing second screen experience of backstage in Manny's dressing room, but also because it was providing a lot of people pirated streams of the content that they didn't want to pay $100 for. We've got a few days have gone by. What's the general thought from the Periscope team about kind of this backlash of people saying, oh, this is a vehicle for pirating content?
So, I mean, I can share with you how Periscope looks at this whole situation and sort of what we've done, and I can share my general thoughts as well. Mm-hmm. From like an operational standpoint, we were completely prepared for our partners, in this case, CBS, Showtime, HBO, to reach out to us like any other partner would to request taking down a stream that's violating their IP rights.
Right.
And so what that means is we have a team of people that basically look at an inbound email channel, and if someone says, hey, this stream is violating our copyright, we take it down. And we actually published these numbers. We had 66 requests for takedown. We took down 30 of them, all within a matter of minutes. The ones that we didn't take down were already ended because, as you can imagine, not every stream is super long. So I think that from a DMCA process perspective, we were ready. We knew that we had to be well-staffed, and we were. I think there's a broader question, though, which obviously, like, you've seen other headlines around Game of Thrones and Periscope, and like what I will say is that generally there's way more media attention than there is a problem, in the sense that there were probably an order of magnitude more articles written about the whole Game of Thrones thing than there were actual broadcasts that were reported to us about the Game of Thrones.
But then again, don't you have the issue of the numbers that you're throwing out about what got taken down, of 60 complaints, 30-something? That sounds very low to me. And it's sort of that whack-a-mole situation, right? If the stream is over, then what's there to do except know that somebody somewhere saw something that they should have been paying somebody for?
Right. Yeah, I mean, generally, I would say that there's a lot of innovation to be had in the whole DMCA operational process. Mm-hmm. Like the sheer fact, for example, that the DMCA process mandates that you respond to these within 24 hours obviously isn't very relevant in a real-time setting. There are a lot of tools that should exist and can exist with a lot of time and development to handle this stuff in real time, and we're genuinely interested in working with partners on figuring that out. It's like, it's new territory, right? Like the proliferation of all these mobile devices and the fact that I can just take my phone right now and stream changes the landscape of how a process like that has been done in the past. Right. So we're totally game to help innovate that space forward. But I will say that generally, and I think that the boxing match was an exception just given how much hype there was, how much demand there was to watch it, how expensive it was, and frankly the friction involved. I mean, down to the fact that you had cable companies that literally couldn't provide access to the stream for people who paid.
Right.
So that was an unusual circumstance. Mm-hmm. I would say generally my personal view on this is that no one wants to watch Game of Thrones over Periscope. Like, I love Periscope, trust me, but like it's just not the right way to watch an experience that should be had on TV or on an iPad with like a nice sound system or headphones.
Hey, if HBO Go goes down and you're a big enough fan, you'll do anything.
That is true. And I will say I'm glad you brought up HBO Go because I think it's examples of like that. Like HBO is a fantastic example of what companies like HBO can be doing to make it frictionless for people to get the content they want. I think generally speaking, especially in a world where like mobile devices are so pervasive, if you make it really easy for people to have a legitimate way to access the content, they will. And iTunes proved that. So I think that that's the other way I look at this is there's a lot of stuff we can be doing around tools. We have to have a process that's respectful because piracy, it's not a Periscope thing, it's an internet thing. Like piracy's been around forever.
Sure.
And I think the combination of making it frictionless for people to have access to the content legitimately and all the other stuff will help everything.
You did mention that there's probably more media attention than there is an actual problem. Have you heard from HBO or Showtime or CBS about how you can fix something like this from happening in the future?
Well, we certainly have worked with them very closely the day of, and in other cases to a lesser extent. And you'll see like European football leagues will reach out and be like, hey, there's someone's broadcasting the whatever Turkish soccer match, please take it down. We also work really closely with companies like HBO around brainstorming awesome opportunities. Like the fact that you could watch Manny Pacquiao, in the locker room before the match was amazing. Sure. And so we collaborate with those partners in a lot of ways, and I think we're totally open to conversing with them around like more brainstorming how we can create tooling that can help this process as well.
So the pirating aside, the boxing match is a great example of that second screen experience. Mm-hmm. Do you have specific live events that are non-sports? Because sports it's kind of become this, that's really the last live thing. You can't really watch the Super Bowl a day later. You'd have to live underground. You're gonna know who won the boxing match. You're gonna know who won Best Actress at the Oscars. What kind of partners do you think would be good for something like what you did over the weekend going forward?
I think that that's for me, the exciting and the beauty of Periscope is this massive spectrum of possibilities, right? On one side, you have, you might be sharing your nephew's first footsteps with the family. On the other side, you might have, you might be on the ground in Baltimore sharing important things that are happening around you with the world. Or you might be at the Met Gala. Katie Couric was broadcasting at the Met Gala last night and just like,
I saw that.
Talking to celebrities. The one celebrity she didn't actually point the camera at was George Clooney. I think she was so flabbergasted that she was talking to George Clooney that
she's Katie Couric.
That's what I said.
Can't handle that?
Exactly.
All right.
But I think that's the beauty. Is that there's a lot of things in that spectrum where our vision of being almost like a teleportation device can come to life, where I just want to step into someone's shoes and experience some place that I'm not at right now.
Yeah.
And that can transcend events, places, personal, social experiences. There's a lot that can happen there, and that's both one of the terrifying and one of the really exciting things about trying to create a product that addresses that massive of a spectrum.
Before Periscope was out to the world, I was telling you a little bit before we came out on stage that I had experimented with Meerkat a few times. Obviously, the two apps get compared because they do a lot of similar things, although the model is somewhat different. When you say something like Katie Couric was at the Met Gala and using Periscope, I'm starting to see a lot more Periscope than I am Meerkat with public figures. Do you have an outreach team that is helping that along?
So I would say there are a few things that we're doing. One, we're just working on building an awesome product, and I think that that's like the typical process by which great products get recognized, and I think that we care a lot about that. I think we think that if we focus and build something really amazing, that people will use it. That's our hope, at least. We also have a lot of support from both folks on our team that work on brainstorming creative opportunities with friends, with partners, with we'll know of events that we wish were covered on Periscope, and we'll reach out ourselves. We also have a great team at Twitter. I mean, this is one of the great things about being partnered with an organization that is that's been doing this for a while and has a lot of wisdom and expertise in this space. We have a whole team of people at Twitter that are have fantastic relationships with, whether it's sporting leagues or whether it's broadcasting partners or whether it's celebrities or whether it's creators. Jason was just on here talking about Vine. Like there's countless Vine celebrities that we've been working with that have been doing some of the most creative things I've seen on Periscope. Have just been folks that you wouldn't necessarily recognize their name, but they just like experimenting with new tools. And the combination of all those things has made it, I think, possible for us to see lots of really interesting use cases on Periscope, even though it's early.
You mentioned Twitter. I happen to live right near your office. We figured that out. We're neighbors, go to the same coffee shop. The Twitter building, which is very beautiful, is also not too far away, about 3 blocks. You've made it clear that you want Periscope and the team to be in a separate space, physically, not only have autonomy as a team, but to have some distance. Why is that so important?
Well, I think the thesis of our partnership with Twitter was we truly want to be a startup with the resources of a bigger company.
Isn't that what all startups would want? It sounds perfect.
I think that philosophically that sounds great all the time. I think that there are a lot of legitimate cases where it's actually more powerful to be more deeply embedded with a company. But in our case, the whole thesis of the Periscope Twitter merger was we build a standalone product, and we have a standalone, everything from the marketing to the product experience to the branding to the physical office and the culture. Those two things go hand in hand. I believe, and we as a team believe, and I think Twitter believes as well, needs to be separate. Twitter's a really big company, and a lot of their cadence and a lot of their processes are built for the size of company they are.
Yeah.
Periscope was 5 people, now is 13 people. We've grown a lot in the last month and a half. But that's still tiny, and everything is fundamentally different in a 13-person company. We literally, we all eat lunch together still. You can't do that at a 4,000-person company.
Well, they do have a really nice roof deck.
They have a great roof deck,
and
we visit the roof deck every once in a while. No, it was not even a question for us that we had to have our own space to experiment and succeed and fail and just go through that process as a standalone group. And the great thing about that is by having that physical autonomy, it allows us to reach up to the mothership and go, hey, we need help in this area.
Yeah.
And it creates this really awesome positive feedback cycle where the company is, of course, always thrilled to help. And they have some of the brightest engineers and marketers and every facet of the company. There are brilliant people who are willing and genuinely excited to help us. And so it's just been a great partnership because of that.
So a few days ago, when I knew that we were going to be sitting here on the stage, I took to Twitter and I said, well, what would you ask? What would you ask Kayvon? And I got a lot of responses, and a lot of it had to do with Android. Specifically, Chris Sacca, who's obviously an enthusiastic Periscope user and an investor, said that if he were me sitting here right now, he might say, is that an Android version of Periscope in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
You should see my iPhone 6 Plus. No, there is actually an Android in my pocket. And of course, we're working really hard on Android. We have, I think, an incredible Android team that is dedicated to creating an awesome experience. And we're really close. We've got a beta that we're using. And we also just want to make sure we release a product that we're really proud of that has the level of polish that we think a V1 deserves. And so we don't feel particularly rushed to spit something out, but we're absolutely working on Android. I mean, there's a ton of people out there who have Android devices that would want to use it, and there have been a ton of people who've been vocal about wanting Android, and that's highly motivating for us to see that out there.
Right.
And we'll have something really soon.
It surprises me that there isn't an Android version yet, just because of the huge number of people, especially in certain emerging markets, that are on Android devices that could help so much with a map view. Also, that's something that you guys should think about if you're not already. Or are you thinking about a map view of Periscopes? Because that would be great, right? If I want to see what's going on the ground in Baltimore, well, am I supposed to be relying on people titling their Periscopes properly? I'd rather just zoom in on the area.
You should stay tuned to your App Store release notes. You might be pretty happy soon.
Really? Maybe tomorrow? Or
as soon as we get done with this interview, we'll go push the button. No. Soon.
I guess you just have to ask.
Right. You don't get what you don't ask for.
Glad I did.
So I don't think you should be surprised. And the reason I think that is because it takes a long time to build something that you're proud of, or that we're proud of, I guess. I mean, we spent a year building the iOS app. You can't just snap your fingers and make an Android app appear. And we philosophically believe that you need to build applications to take advantage and be respectful of the ecosystem and platform they're on, which is why our Android app isn't identical to our iOS app. There are a lot of things we're doing that leverage the Android platform, the Android ecosystem in a way that maybe aren't even possible on iOS, or maybe are possible, but they should just be done differently. And those things take time. And remember, we launched the product March 26th on iOS, and we're building an app on a whole other platform in a drastically shorter amount of time than we did on iOS. So it's coming.
All right, good. So we've got Android, we got map view. Awesome.
What else do you want? Let's make a list.
Well, I would like Periscope users to be better at shooting video. And I know that is a big ask. I work in video, so it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's something that's going to be a problem with anybody shooting video. You've got audio issues. You're shooting vertical. It's shaky. Search is hard. There are a lot of issues that go into not only creating good content, but surfacing good content. What is Periscope doing to address the fact that a lot of people just aren't professional video takers? There might be talent in there. How do we find them?
Yeah. Well, so I think all the challenges you listed are legitimate challenges. We look at them as opportunities because I think it's really, that's the interesting thing about this space for us is that not many people are very well predisposed to being performers. You go on stage or you're on camera all the time and you're a natural at it. Most people, I would put myself in this category, and pretty much everyone on our team, like we don't think of ourselves as broadcasters or performers, and that forced us to create a product that made it, we think, a little bit more charming and easier to go on stage. And I think there are lots of product opportunities around how you can make it just really charming and awesome to have an audience. And a lot of the mechanics that you see in Periscope were fueled by that motivation, right? The idea of hearts, which our designer Tyler brilliantly invented. The whole idea was, one, to serve as a feedback mechanic. Like, it's hard for me as a viewer to say, hey, Sarah, I love what you're doing, like, keep going. It's really easy for me to tap the screen a bunch of times and for you to see a bunch of hearts fluttering and flying.
Right.
It makes you feel like your audience is there and liking what they're seeing. So that was really important. That was just an observation that we had to make being live not feel like this stressful blinking red dot. And there's, I think, a lot of things in that realm that we can do to lower the bar for who can be a broadcaster. And then I think it's just about, people are experimenting. It's early days with this concept and with Periscope as a tool. And so I think the more people use it, the more people have examples of compelling content that's well produced, the more they'll, I think, be inspired to like do things differently. And we're just in that experimental phase, which is super great to see.
There was a rumor over the weekend that if a pirated stream of the boxing match was getting hearted too many times, that's how Periscope was figuring out that it existed. Is that true? Do you monitor those?
It's not true. That is not the heuristic by which we were shutting down broadcasts. But it was really entertaining to see that because it created this whole subculture around, never have I in a Periscope seen a mob mentality around asking people not to heart.
Yeah, because you already have the number of someone joining the stream, right? So it's not as if they're invisible.
Right. Yeah, no, it was really entertaining to see.
So that's just, there's no truth to that. Can you monitor engagement in the way, though? Even if you weren't doing that specifically over the weekend? Can you say, interesting, this stream has 100 viewers, but it's getting so many hearts. There must be something interesting going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of statistics that we do aggregate, and a lot of them that we actually make visible to the user. So as a broadcaster, you can see your retention, you can see the total number of viewers, you can see the total number of hearts you got, you can see the aggregate watch time, which is one of my favorite metrics. It's like a perfect combination of how many people watched and how long they watched, because 1,000 people watching for 2 seconds is not particularly compelling. It's probably the antithesis of being compelling. Yeah, so broadcasters get that information, viewers get a subset of that information, and it allows us, in terms of our discovery efforts, it gives us a lot of opportunity to make better tools to discover like the interesting stuff that's going on right now.
One of my last questions for you is just the concept of watching live content. We have so many on-demand solutions. I don't even have cable anymore, so it's like I watch very little live unless it's on network TV because I've got an over-the-air antenna. So I don't really feel the need to see anything live, again, unless it's a Super Bowl type of a situation. How do you, because Periscope offers you the ability to watch stuff after the fact, but it's still the emphasis on live. This is happening right now, right on the other side of the screen. How do you get people to feel that they need to watch something as it's happening again when we've all been, we've sort of been conditioned to know that we can get around it?
I think it's a great question. I think we've also been conditioned to think of live as a passive experience. When I watch TV, I'm sitting on my couch. I'm not interacting. I'm watching a screen.
Yeah.
With Periscope, our whole ambition was, let's make this an immersive experience. Let's put you as a viewer actually in the director's chair so that you can break down that fourth wall and impact what you're seeing. The magic moment of Periscope is not when the video stream starts and it's live. The magic moment is when Sarah says, Kayvon, walk over there, and 2 seconds later, Kayvon walks over there. You're like, holy shit, I just made that happen.
Yeah.
And we've seen that, like, when you watch Tom Green walking the streets of San Francisco broadcasting, and one of his viewers says, get in that Ford Mustang, and he gets in the Ford Mustang, you're like, mind is blown. And so
it's
that's
subservient chicken,
right. That is
but real.
what our like competitive edge is as a medium, because it's not live like we're used to. It's this like bi-directional, magical live, and that's what we try and remind ourselves as we continue to build tools to make Periscope achieve that vision.
Well, congratulations on all your success so far. We are out of time, but thanks, Kayvon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks to all of you.